Welcome. It's art. It's music. It's life. It's fashion. It's listening. It's learning. It's sharing. It's determining and discerning fact from fiction, from illusion, from fantasy. It's art inspired by life. It's life inspired by art. We're living at a time like no other on planet Earth. Spiritual, physical, metaphysical, insights, wisdom, challenges. We're more connected by technology and less connected to each other. We're all seeking answers, and we're often too busy to listen for the truth. Her story and his story and our story. I research, I question, I look for answers to share with you, exploring higher visions. Authors and publishers and creatives, all bringing us their empowerment tools, their insights. And I'm mining for those gems of wisdom. We share the fiery energy of transformation, healing, inspiration, and lots of revelations. Let's chat. Let's explore. Welcome back to CWC Art and Soul with Catherine Whalen Costin. Hey, are you feeling stressed? Are you feeling like really life is overwhelming? This show might be for you. I have a terrific guest with me today, and her name is Susanne Heaton. She's the author of the ABC Field Guide to Fairies. She was on my show back when it was called Let's Get Real, chatting with Catherine a number of years ago when this book came out. And it's an absolutely amazing book for children that she wrote, and she'll tell us more about it. But it is available on her website too, and I will provide you with the links. ABC Field Guide to Fairies. Beautifully illustrated, beautiful book for kids to explore with the fairies, and she introduces them. Just an absolutely gorgeous book. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and if you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, you might find some insight here and some tips on how to resolve that for yourself. This is a new painting that I've just done not too long ago. You can see it has a lot of gold up in the top here. It's a 10 by 10. It's called Variables, and it'll be available for sale. It is, I believe it's on the website now. Just really cool flow energy. I love it. So let me tell you about Susanne, because her connection to nature is happened by kind of life brought her there. After having some life-changing wake-up calls, Susanne took the leap of faith from corporate world to start her own business to help others live a healthier lifestyle. And she explains that to us, how that happened in the interview today. She uses science-backed research on natural modalities as well as the benefits of connecting with nature in her monthly online Wild About Nature challenges. Inspirational speaker, workshops, and award-winning children's book. Susanne is motivated by nature, and you might be too after watching her and listening to her insights and all the information she's sharing with us. Now's the time to really grab a hold of your life and get back to what is natural and live and thrive. So we'll get into this conversation right now. If you want more information on future guests or listen to the podcast, you can do so right on the website, cwcartandsoul.com. There's the link for the fashion storefront for all of my wearable art that is made by Legalities in Montreal, Canada, ethically made and beautiful, luxurious. And if you're going to wear clothes, they might as well feel good. And also the art is available as well. There's the art book store, which has my memoir. So feel free to browse the website if you have any questions, use the contact link, or you can connect with me on Instagram or Facebook and message me there. All right, let's get into this conversation. Links will be provided in the description box. And also, If you feel this is too long, listen to it in segments because she's got so much good information to share. I will get timestamps on it and also subtitles as soon as possible. So thanks for watching, and let's get into this conversation with Susanne. Okay, so welcome to CWC Art and Soul, and my guest today is Susanne Heaton. And Susanne has been a guest previously on Let's Get Real chatting with Catherine, but it's been a few years. So we need to catch up, and nothing better than these times of transformation on the planet, and the work Susanne does is actually the most perfect for these times. And I feel like when people read your bio, they'll see you were in more of the corporate world and made a transition to a whole different life. So can you tell us how that happened and where how you got to where you are today?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
It is.
Well, I grew up on a farm, and I ended up learning a lot from nature through osmosis, just by being immersed in it. And I had great aunts that came out and they were master gardeners. And it was just, being around them. My mom was an artist. She did sunrises and sunsets. And my dad was into soil and water conservation. And I went from that to going to university and taking a phys ed and recreation degree. And then that didn't get me exactly where I wanted to go. So then I went back to university and I got a management degree and majored in marketing, ended up working in the corporate world. I had some major wake-up calls happen. One was cancer for myself. One was my friend's 12-year-old daughter who passed away from a brain tumor, and then suffering burnout in the workforce. And then the final nail in that chapter in my life was my father being diagnosed with a 6-inch cancerous tumor that the doctors had missed and gave him 3 months to live. And those wake-up calls made me realize just how precious this life of ours is. He passed in 2009, and I went back to my work and I said, I'm going to be leaving the corporate world effective March 2009. And I started my own business called Motivated by Nature. And it started with a children's book called the ABC Field Guide to Fairies. And it was actually dedicated to that young girl, Sarah, who came to me in a dream. She was only 12 years old when she passed. We used to go hiking with the family, and she was back to her giggly, mischievous old self in this dream. She was twirling in a meadow filled with wildflowers. And she said, Susanne, I've got fairy wings instead of angel wings because they're so much easier to run and play around the meadow in. And that dream happened while I was still in the corporate world. And so I started to research things about fairies and found out they're considered nature's angels. And the rest is kind of history, actually.
That is fantastic, though. So much. The signs, the spirit giving you little nudges to shift direction. And so perfect that your business is motivated by nature, because clearly it was nature calling you back to get more grounded, get more connected in that way. And I think a lot of people today are finding themselves so disconnected, not just from people. A lot of people have been complaining about how the pandemic disconnected us from each other. And I would say the disconnection started a long time before the pandemic. We have more relationship with our technology. I mean, when a person's cell phone beeps, they respond much quicker than they do to their spouse, their dog, their kids, their anything else. That beep, people just, I gotta check and see, did I get an email? Did I get something? While somebody in the room is actually looking for their attention.
It's interesting you say that, because it's almost like Pavlov's dogs, right? We're conditioned to hear that ding, that beep. Is it a like on something I've posted, right? And so we are, and they play into that, right? We want
There's a lot of psychology involved in this programming. And I remember years ago having a light bulb moment about the television at the time, because I remember the older women, my grandmother, I remember hearing her say it. My mother-in-law said it at one time. I just kept hearing this about my program. Oh, it's time for my program. It's time for my program today. And that meant their soap opera. But
Right.
it really was, why do we call them programs? They're programs. Why do we call them channels? The television channels. How many channels are you getting? And at the same time, it's like we're comfortable with that. That's a channel, that's a program, and we're okay. But when someone says, I'm channeling spirit, ooh, now you're weird. Or, right? Now that's super weird. But that's actually our natural state of being, is to be, and that sounds like you have the dream that let you know there is no death. There's that continuation. As I always say, there is no death. We drop our bodies, but we go on. But this time here is very precious. It doesn't make it just because there's no death doesn't mean this time is, we can be flip about it. This is a gift. This is a tremendous gift. And we have such a beautiful planet. So you stepped away from corporate world and said, now, did you know, I mean, you had your hands in dirt as a child, you knew the gardening aspect, your mother was a painter, but did you know, motivated by nature, did you know what that was calling you at that point?
No, to be perfectly, what launched it was that book. What happened was, while I was still in the corporate world, my husband and I went for a sea kayaking trip. And all of a sudden I got this download. You want to talk about channeling? I got this download of information, and I was like, where is this coming from? Because I'd never written a book before in my whole entire life. It was coming through, and I knew I had to write it down, because if I didn't write it down, it was going to be gone. And what kept on coming in for it was, stop being so scientific, lighten up, and make it rhyme. And so that's what ended up happening. Is the book is in poem format, starts at the letter A, goes all the way to the letter Z. So I came back from that kayaking trip, and I thought, okay, I'm going to make another goal for myself, because I had the book half done, half written, the draft. And I thought, okay, 2 months from now, I'll have it fully completed. So I did. I actually started working with an illustrator. That's when I got the news about my dad being sick. And so I went back home to our family farm. And my dad and I had some incredible conversations. He said to me, he said, Suze, get yourself out of the corporate job and go and focus on writing your book. So all I knew was the book was the first step. That's all I knew.
And it's beautiful book. It's a beautiful book. And people can still get the book?
Yeah, it's available on Amazon. Actually, they can get the softcover version there. I actually sold 5,000 hard copies of the book and raised money for worthy causes doing that. And yeah, it was just, I also had a private sponsor come in and buy 2,000 of the books to donate to a reading organization here that helps immigrants learn English. And with it being rhyming, it made it easier for them to learn English. So that's
perfect. That's congratulations. That's incredible. I'm sure your spirit fairy is applauding the.
Well, she is through every page of that book. Her cheekiness, her playfulness, it all comes through her. And what I did was, for the letter S in that book, I dressed up as Susanne the Sunshine Fairy. So I would go into schools and talk to the kids from kindergarten all the way to grade 6, and I would change it up for each of them. And I dressed up as Susanne the Sunshine Fairy, and that was it was a magical experience. And kids get it. Kids we could learn so much from them.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely. They are our teachers, and even in the Bible is that quote from Jesus, follow the little children. And I don't think that was just a passing. I mean, it wouldn't be written down. There's always something, whether people follow the spiritual books or not. There are gems of wisdom in everything. And especially when something's written down, there's power in the word, and there's power in our understanding of, children they're coming in so fresh, and they're seeing, it's like here, it's kind of funny. I know this couple who go away, if they go away for a day or two, a weekend, or, if they're on a holiday, when they come home, they don't rush into the house and put everything away. They look around. They look at their house like it's the first time they're seeing it. They look at their yard. They look at their property. They do a walk around looking for anything out of place or new, or that could be shifted up or could be refreshed, so that they're not in the, taking it for granted, in the sense of it being, oh yeah, it's always been there. You know how there's things in your awareness, but you don't see them. Your treasures.
Oh.
You don't, right? You don't see them. You put them up. It's an ornament. It's a whatever. It's a picture of your child. It's a picture of some occasion, but it's there, and you're not cognizant of it in your conscious awareness. It's just there. So when they come in, they got fresh eyes and of their home and space, and that's when they decide what they need to freshen it up. What do they need to do to shift it up, or what do they like about it, or all those things. And I was thinking that's the same with children. If you believe in reincarnation, even more so, because they're coming in for another go round, looking at the home that they used to have. Wonder what changed. How's it going? What can we do to improve the place? Right?
I love that. I love that sense of mindfulness, and that sense of awe and wonder that children do have. So that's brilliant that they do that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. And it made me more aware as well of my space and the world that I live in, and our connection to this planet. And I have to say that what's been coming to my awareness in the last few years is, I wrote this down. I don't know if I shared it or if I just wrote it down, but I wondered how many people today have spent their entire lives without ever having their feet on the earth, period.
Oh my goodness. you're gonna, yeah. Yeah.
And cradle to grave, the next time their body is going to actually feel the earth is going to be after they're out of it.
Yeah. And there's so much in that, because there's the practice of grounding, right? Where you go outdoors barefoot and you ground. So it's your foot to the ground. It can either be grass, it can be dirt, it can be sand, whatever it might be. And when you do this, and you do this for 20 minutes, what happens is you are soaking up millions of electrons up into your body to help to decoagulate the blood and detoxify the blood, take down inflammation. And grounding has been linked with everything from helping with heart issues to insomnia, right? And autoimmune disorders. And it's just as simple as kicking off your socks and shoes, right? So,
and you just, wonder if, so I'm almost 62. So my entire childhood, I can still feel the heat on my feet sometimes if you're walking on the grass and then you had to walk on some asphalt or on some cement. Asphalt was worse, but it was hot and you're like, ooh, trying to get past it. But you had no choice because you had no shoes with you because you weren't planning on having shoes with you. It's not, might have had some flip-flops from time to time, but a lot of our childhood was spent I mean, it was very rare that you wondered, oh, can't walk on that grass because it might have some poison on it, or you can't sit in the sand because, you know, we did that. We sat for not 20 minutes, we sat all day in the sand, right? We buried ourselves in the sand at the beach.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and I just kind of wonder if this helps our nervous system, if this helps to detox, perhaps some of the problems we're having by kids sitting in a classroom 20, you know, for 12 years at least, then they go home and they're sitting in their living room or their house, but they're not ever really connecting with nature. And we're seeing this increase in so many problems for adults, but for children. We got obesity, we've got ADHD, in every other label, you know, not being able to sit still, not being able to concentrate. And then the teens acting out in very violent behavior at times. And I can see where this all, you know, being medicated throughout in many cases to get them to conform to something that is abnormal. It's not normal for us to have that. Really, we're being caged by our own behavior, by our own choices. Nobody is, in most cases, preventing us from being outside, although parents do it to children, confine them because, you know, they don't have time to take them out, or they don't have, you know, oh my God, when I say that, I feel like I'm saying, don't have time to walk the dog. I'm talking about children. I don't have time to take them to the park. To, you know, I drive by parks, playgrounds, and I see them empty a lot of the time.
I was just going to say one thing though about the pandemic is I did start to see more people, families going outside and going for walks together, right? Because there was a time where we couldn't go to the parks. We weren't allowed to go to the parks anymore. And a lot of people becoming more familiar with their backyard. So I think that's one of the benefits that happened from COVID. And what my hope is that people continue to embrace that well-being, being out in nature, because the bottom line is we are nature, we're connected to it. And so when we disconnect from it that way, guess what? Dis-ease is going to happen. And on the subject of,
let's just take a short intermission here. I'll show you some of my art, listen to some nature, just to relax. Just take a moment to breathe. I don't think we breathe consciously enough. We'll get back to the chat.
on the subject of ADHD, there was a young boy in the States who the teachers just could not handle. He was about 13, I think, and they phoned up his parents and said, you know what, we can't handle him in the school system. You're going to have to look after his education because we can't deal with it. So the parents noticed that this young boy of theirs seemed to calm down when he went beside streams and when he went into the forest and when he went by the mountains. And they decided to let nature be his teacher. And this young boy grew up to be Ansel Adams, the amazing photographer.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think
wow. And yeah. To be a photographer, you have to be still. You have to pay attention. You have to be that kind of mindfulness is incredible. And I think that's the reason I wanted to have you on the show, but also to bring it up now is because the pandemic did teach us a lot of things. Life teaches us. Every event that happens can teach us something. It's not that we want it to happen, but sometimes we learn best, unfortunately, when we're shown. And we were shown on a global scale that we need connection with other people, that we need connection to nature, because there were certain countries where you couldn't go outside at all. And so
Imagine.
yeah, exactly. But I would also say that there are lifestyles where people don't go outside at all by choice.
Yeah.
And it's only when it was enforced that, and by many, that we start to see that connection. And I hope there's a lot of research that's going to come out of this because normally, if you've ever been to the doctor, they don't normally say, how much time do you spend outside? They might say, you've got something wrong, and you say, well, I'm working full time and I've got kids and I've got, my house to take care of and whatever. But in saying that, from the person hearing that, they're going to hear it through their own point of view. So if their household, family, all those things mean being outside, they got a family, they got sports, they got this, they're outside, they're playing hockey, they're playing, soccer, they're going to the beach. But maybe that isn't what it means. Maybe it just means their feet never touch the ground. They're in the car, they're on cement, they're at school, they're not going, even some of the school playgrounds are, they don't have grass, or they're still not touching the ground. They're not, sitting in it. So to me, this should be ringing alarm bells in some ways, or just maybe not alarm bells, but an invitation back home to nature, to our natural state of being. Like you say, we are part of it. Yes. And to be aware of how something so simple may be the answer to a lot of our dis-ease. It's not, our body is not at ease. And when we are in nature, and a lot of people will know, I need to go camping. But when they go camping, are they in nature, or are they, a lot of times camping means a lot of alcohol or something to further take them away. So they're not sleeping on the ground. They're not, I personally don't like sleeping on the ground anymore, but I just, we're doing certain things, but we're not doing it all the way. We're not.
Yeah. Well, something I am really super, super excited about is in 2019, Dr. Melissa Lem and Parks BC partnered together to create the first Canadian-based green prescription program. So what that means, and what's really exciting, is back in March, it came to Alberta, but it's through from British Columbia all the way to Ontario right now. And what it means is you can go to your doctor and you can get a green prescription. And for anyone that's in Canada, I highly recommend that you ask your doctor about it, because it's such a new program that people aren't quite aware that it exists out there. And they've realized that in prescribing this green time, and it's prescribed green time, so it's 20 minutes of walking outdoors for 6 times during the week. So you get one day off. And they find that's huge prevention for anxiety and depression. And so when I went and talked to my doctor, I said, have you heard about this green prescription program? And she said, no, I haven't. And I told her about it. And she said, that's amazing. She said, that is what I believe in. She said, first it's food and the proper exercise and proper sleep, and then nature time. And she said, this is awesome that they have it. And so, she signed up as a practitioner, which is great. But the more we can talk about that and get the news out there about it, the better it will be. And what's happening is Canadian Parks and Recreation have now come on board as well. And for people who get a green prescription from their doctor, they'll also get a free park pass from Canadian Parks and Recreation.
Awesome.
Parks. Yeah. But I want to give a caveat to that, because a lot of people think that they need to go to a park to get the full benefit. You can get the benefit just walking out your front or back door, getting into nature. right?
Yeah,
So
if you have grass, if you're not living in a cement
yes,
jungle,
yeah.
but you can find public parks that you can walk into, and also you don't have to go to your doctor to get a prescription. It's good that that is being recommended, but you can, because I'm thinking 20 minutes a day, that is awesome. That's way more than a lot of people have. But I do remember, like I said, for children especially, the majority of our time was spent outdoors. We
Oh,
did not spend,
100%.
yeah. I mean, it was street lights come on, it's time for you to go home. And, you know, they just don't get into trouble. And, you know, I used to tell people not to feed my kids because I always knew they would come home if they were hungry. And because you know how you kids are out playing and the neighbors got, oh, well, you know, I'm giving my kid lunch, I'll give your kid lunch. No, don't.
Yeah.
Let them come home so I know where they are, because they're not going to come home. They're playing, right? But I
Absolutely.
know there are
So,
some outdoor schools, and I think there was some in Canada that happened during COVID where teachers said, okay, we can't do this classroom safely and comfortably. Let's do outdoor. And it was winter too.
yeah.
They were out, and I'm thinking that is education.
It is 100%. And because they have showed how when they take preschoolers, it started in Sweden, I think it was, and it didn't matter what the temperature, they bundled up for the weather. And their awareness of things, they're measuring things without realizing it's math, right? And it's fantastic to see that. And so that gets layered in more than sitting at a desk and this is how you're learning. Kids don't learn best that way,
Well, and
right?
also what they're learning, a lot of what has been taught is we're regurgitating what the previous generation knew. And if we're going to follow the little children, and if the little children have all this knowledge, this is ass backwards, in my opinion. It's we have to find ways to not assume that every child is the wise monk, you know, kind of thing. That's not what that means. They need guidance. They need settings where they can expand and explore. But you know, another part of this kind of nature school or being in nature generally is developing our sixth sense, so that when we're navigating in the jungle of cement world, you know, you have to go somewhere, you know, you can feel it, you know what it feels like when there's danger. If you're in nature, you and are being quiet and listening to the sounds of nature, the, you know, the birds and you walk into a place and you don't hear any birds, that should be a signal. There's
it
something is not right here. Something is, you know.
Yeah. So the three most soothing sounds to the human ear are birdsong, wind, and water. So we are wired to hear that. And exactly what you said. When you don't hear that bird song, it's like, okay, what kind of danger is around that I'm not aware of right now, right?
Yeah.
So
It should be, and to getting that connection to our intuition, which is, you know, like people talk about street smarts, and so that we can navigate our world. But to get your, yes, some people learn it the hard way on the street, but our world is much more than just one danger to another. We should be able to navigate in joy, in peace, in harmony, and know that we don't have to be like people who've gone through trauma in particular, like in my life, you get hyper alert.
mhm.
And unfortunately, everything could mean everything is, you know, it's over hypersensitive, hyper vigilant, so that you never can relax, because every sound is a potential, because you've had, especially if you've had a lot of different traumas, you have different sounds that got taken in that mean something. And having that, and maybe they're sounds that you didn't listen to because you didn't know it was danger, because whatever the world we're living in. And I think that connection to nature is where you can really ground back into your body, get into your body. That's a big thing for, you know, I felt like I was walking beside myself for a lot of my life because it was too dangerous to be in my body.
Yeah.
And getting that connection to nature, to understanding what real danger sounds like, as opposed to the hyper, every time the phone rings, it doesn't mean someone's going to die. Every time,
Yeah.
these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And nature can can give us those tools if we allow it. Like, I just think about how often, you know, I would walk home with my girlfriend late at night from the theater. Nobody picked us up. It was late. It was dark, and we knew how to. We weren't very big. We were, maybe 13 years old, something like that. And I remember us being very aware as we walked by the ballpark, and we seeing somebody in the distance, in the shadows, like we were alert. And I remember one time, she was taller than I was. And so she said, let's hold hands and they'll think it's a guy and a girl. And so,
Oh,
because back
yeah.
then,
Yeah.
that would be the only situation like that. And I just thought, we just knew that gave us a little more security. But we knew our environment. We saw the shadow. We knew where people were. And we knew when to run. We knew when to, if you're raising kids, if kids are being raised inside these very strict little boxes, the only danger they're going to be aware of is whatever happens inside that classroom. And right now, we also have a lot of that on the news about classrooms and school not being safe. But I think it's a spiral. Everything's connected. How did those teens that are now committing horrific violence, how did they get off track? Where did we as a society get off track? And I think what you're talking about, and I love that you're doing this, because it's empowering. It gives people tools. It's not out there. We are not saying, well, this is how it is. This is how it's always been. That's not true, for one. And we can't do anything. And looking for a quick fix or a medication, which is not going to, a medication is not going to get you back to nature, which is what you actually need.
Well, it's interesting because, they're shifting from a pill for every ill, right? To looking, okay, let's look at prevention. And there's actually the Global Wellness Organization down in the States. And they have said there's 4 pillars to health. One is food, the other is exercise, the other is sleep, and the 4th is nature. They've actually named nature as the 4th pillar of wellness. We need to get back to it, not only for our survival, but for ensuring the survival of the planet. So it's got to be a win-win situation.
Yeah. It's interesting too. Good food and nature, they're very connected. The growing of food, the hands in the garden, the planting the seeds, that whole thing. I mean, well, it is all connected, which 4 pillars. And if you think about it, if you're a gardener, you've got nature, you've got growing food, you've got exercise. And what was the other one?
Sleep. Good sleep.
Sleep. And you'll sleep very well if you've been out in your garden.
Exactly. Well, and it's interesting too, because they've done a lot of studies on people that garden, and there is truth to the happy gardener, because what happens is there's biomes in the soil that when we breathe them in, they help to give off chemicals in our brain like dopamine, which make us happy. Right. And they also improve our gut health. And you had an episode just recently where you were talking about gut health. And when you garden, you're breathing in those biomes to increase your gut health. And there's actually an organization out of the States called the American Gut Project. And they're actually encouraging people not to clean their produce so well, as long as they know where it's come from, and just to dirty up their meal a bit so that they get a bit of dirt into their system. And a friend of ours, her dad was an old school doctor, and he said every kid to boost their immunity should eat about a tablespoon of dirt. And we've gone totally the other way. We've gone so sanitized that any little speck of dirt people worry about. And
and just so people know, this is not like you don't sit them down one day and give them a tablespoon of dirt. They're going to eat it. If you let them be in the dirt, they're going to inhale it. They're going to be chewing on it. I mean, if you've been playing in the dirt, even as an adult, you know, you're gardening, the wind comes up, next thing you know, oh, something gritty in my teeth. Yeah, I'm eating dirt.
Yeah.
And that's it, you know, it does, it happens naturally. Or, you know, they're playing in the mud and they got it on their face and whatever, right? Or like you know, it wasn't a good thing, but it is funny now when I think about it, how often kids used to raid somebody's garden, and they would pull you know, you pull out a carrot
Yeah.
and you're eating it. You
Yeah.
didn't go looking for a hose to wipe it off. You ate it, you know?
Yeah. And that goes into as well having healthy soil. So there's dirt, which is dead soil, and then there's the soil, which has all those wonderful microorganisms in them that create the healthy food that go into the gut. You know, so it's just when we start really appreciating everything around us and not taking things for granted and realizing how connected we are, it's just amazing. And it was interesting because my husband and I had always had lots of flowers around. We love to encourage all the pollinators around. But when COVID hit, we decided to make an area a garden. And so we started one, and we've just continued doing that because I grew up on the farm, and so I'm used to having that beautiful fresh produce right out of the garden. So
Yeah.
so we have continued to do it, and it's such a rewarding thing to do, to see the whole life cycle of the plant. And I love showing my niece and nephew, you know, the whole life cycle, and it's great.
It's fun, and you know, it's fun. It's fun to see something grow into it too. But also, it's if you for people who, you know, they look at maybe they don't have a garden, but they go to the supermarket or the farmer's and they see organic, or they see, you know, and they think, oh, well, it's just more expensive, so I'll just buy the other. If you have not ever eaten really good produce out of good soil, you don't know what you're missing. It takes on, and that's why getting kids to eat fruit and veggies is not that hard if it's actually tastes good. I mean, there's just, it's like candy. I mean, if it is really like a tomato off the vine from your backyard, if the hail doesn't get it, I had tomato soup one year. I had so many tomatoes. It was just beautiful. And then we got this big hailstorm, and well, that was, my backyard was just covered in them. But the smell, I mean, this is where our senses come in. You know, you're holding a tomato in front of you, and you take a nice, you know, deep breath, and you're breathing. That starts the digestive process right there. That smell, right?
Yeah. And that's also part of being mindful, right? And really appreciating what it is that you're eating. And the first year that we did the garden, the carrots from the garden, we had them for Thanksgiving dinner. And I swear to God, it tasted like we had drizzled them with maple syrup, because they were so sweet. They were so amazing. And yeah.
I find that the same with potatoes. Like,
yes,
there is nothing like a potato from your own garden. Nothing. And it is truly incredible. I think the thing that's really key here is that for people to understand there are tools. This is empowering. This is empowering. This is not, you don't need a degree. You don't need to go to university to get a degree. People have been farming for their food for a very long time. I mean, we weren't always eating food that way. I mean, there was periods in our history, but in recent history, people have always been able to grow their own food regardless of education, if the soil was well nourished. And the other part of that is you can learn to which foods will actually nourish your soil. You know, you don't plant the same foods in the soil year after year. You move it around so that because there's, I learned this many years ago. I love to garden, and so this is all coming up for me right now. But it's that learning companion planting, which plants work best with others, which plants are givers to the soil, which ones deplete the soil. So you move it around so you're not having the same crop in the same spot every year. Or like potatoes, you don't want to plant them in the same patch all the time, or you'll get blight on them, or it will deplete the soil.
True
but
competition.
So this has been fantastic, and I do encourage people to get the fairy book for their children and to enjoy the lightheartedness, and to honor Sarah as well, that inspired you, the little fairy. Go to Susanne's website for more information and get into nature. Thank you, Susanne.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such an honor, and let's step outside.
Yeah, we should have done this interview outside. That'd be even more precious, although that wind does carry sound.
It does.
That is the end of part 1. Part 2, link is in the description below, where we will cover a whole lot more. Please join us.
Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for subscribing or following, liking, and sharing the podcast. It helps me grow this channel and hopefully reaches more people with an empowering message. It's always nice to know there is wisdom out there and you can tap into it. Visit the website for more information on how to be a guest, see the guest list and future shows and topics. And while you're there, I invite you to browse my acrylic art pieces on canvas and wood. They make an amazing home decor, high vibe art. And you'll also find the link to my storefront for luxurious women's fashions and home decor, created and designed by me with my art, and manufactured in Montreal, Canada by Le Galeriste. And it is really amazing to have found them. They are environmentally conscious. They use a special dye that doesn't fade, and it's humanely manufactured. It is an awesome time to be on the planet and have these choices. So I invite you to explore and see if there is something there for you. Until next time, take care.